Today, Baba is emphasizing a lot on imbibing knowledge. And then Baba is talking about how we would be able to share the knowledge with intoxication. In Hindi, it's a very beautiful word, falak. So, with that fervor and that radiance, we would be able to share knowledge with others if we have imbibed the knowledge. And what does Baba mean when he says imbibed the knowledge? Because obviously Baba has, so we are all those children who are listening to the Murli and who obviously have faith that whatever Baba is saying is true. So we are those children who are in agreement with knowledge, and we understand that what Baba is saying is true. So when you are in a place mentally where you think that, okay, whatever Baba is saying is true and absolutely correct, is that place known as imbibing knowledge? So Baba says no. So we are all in that place where we know that whatever Baba is saying is true. But the thing is, it is the truth is fine, but is it my truth? So when you have imbibed knowledge, then that knowledge is your truth. And when you have, so there may be a gap between what you think is correct and what you have imbibed in yourself. Okay, so your logical mind might say that whatever Baba is saying is correct, but your heart, what is in your heart, what sits in your heart, that may be very different. So that if there is a difference in the two, then even if you explain to somebody, maybe that this is the truth and I should explain it to somebody. So you might explain it as seva or as your spiritual duty, but then that intoxication won't be there. Okay, so that intoxication through which they also feel the happiness that this knowledge should give, that won't be there. So that intoxication Baba is asking us to have. And just think about the points of knowledge. So when you think about the points of knowledge, do you know which points of knowledge will occur to you first? The points of knowledge which you have imbibed properly. So let's say the knowledge of the soul. Sometimes you have imbibed the knowledge of the soul. So then that point will occur to you and you will speak about it with a lot of fervor and zeal and intoxication. But do you have equal dharana of the other points? Like let's say the fact that we were deities 5,000 years ago and this was Satyug. Do you talk about this point with the same zeal? Or do you talk about Brahma Baba being the instrument into which Shiv Baba descends and teaches Raj Yoga to again change us from Brahmins to deities? Do you talk about this point with that kind of zeal? That is the question. Or the point that the images that you see in the temples are the images of our erstwhile form. So we are the deities to which those images correspond. So, when we were deities, these very souls, then we look like that, and that is my image. And when you visit the temple, do you think about whatever is shown in that image, how does it correspond to your Sangam Yogi or your Satyugi state? So how much do you think about these things, and how much have you imbibed it? Because you see, Baba today says that you may or may not have imbibed it properly or fully, and Baba uses a word which is dull students. So Baba says, if you are a dull student, then you may or may not have imbibed it properly, and you will not be able to inspire others to imbibe it properly. Now, what does Baba mean by a dull student? So, a dull student is usually a dull head. So, we usually say this is a dull head, so dull student. Now, similarly, when we come into Gyan, Baba has told us one important thing. And that thing is that you need a pure intellect so that knowledge can be imbibed in it. So Baba has told us that, शेरनी का दूध सोने के बर्तन में ठहरता है. So, this knowledge is so powerful that you need a golden-aged, a pure intellect, a golden intellect for it to be imbibed in your buddhi. And if our buddhi is filled with clutter of the old world and those old belief systems, then even though we know the knowledge and we understand it is true, it is not something that I have imbibed. Okay, and then Baba has also told us that for imbibing the points of knowledge, you have to churn on them. So you see that when we listen about the knowledge of the soul, we churn on it. We think about, how many times have you practiced that I'm a peaceful, I'm a pure soul? Many times. But then the other points of knowledge, we don't churn enough. Don't you think so? We don't sit and think about how, in this 84 birth cycle, and especially, if you churn about this knowledge of the cycle or the staircase, then you think about what all transpired in these 84 births, and then how, that same Brahma who was Vishnu or Sri Narayan in the first birth, he changes, and there is the saying night of Brahma. So, in the night of Brahma, he becomes ordinary, and then how Shiv Baba descends into him, and how he again adopts us and makes us Brahmins from Shudras and changes us into deities. So when you think about this stuff, it gives you immense happiness. And when you have created that happiness within yourself, felt that happiness within yourself, then when you explain it to others also, that happiness is that is communicable, and that happiness they also pick on. But if you have not churned that point enough, then that point is not giving you happiness, and then you explain it to others but in a very dull fashion, and they also take it, okay, this is some kind of information that the BKs are giving. And I will give you one example. So yesterday I was giving a course, and there was this couple, and I was explaining the Siddhi Ka Chitra, the 84 birth staircase to them. And then I told them that once we leave the body, we go and sit in the soul world first. And then when we go and sit in the soul world after this Vinash, then where will you sit? in the, very close to Baba, or somewhere in the back? So what would be your position? So then they started thinking, and then that suddenly that lady asked me that, so Didi, what do we have to do to sit very close to Baba? Because right now I don't have the confidence that I will sit very close to Baba. So you see that you can inspire others to also think about their position when they sit in the soul world, or their position about when they come to Satyug, but that thing has to be imbibed in you. There is a lot of difference between understanding knowledge, having faith in knowledge, and imbibing knowledge. Yes, and the difference is very comparable to eating food and digesting food. So, if somebody has eaten food, then the food will give the taste, and the food will, give the flavor, but if it is not digested well, it will not create health. And when you're not healthy, you cannot make a difference. So that's the difference. So when we listen to knowledge, we feel good, we understand it, there is intellectual satisfaction, there is happiness that comes from knowing something. But then when you imbibe it, it gives you strength, it gives you a lot of other things which just listening to it and having faith in it doesn't give you. So Baba says, have you imbibed knowledge? Now you see, today Baba makes a very good point in the Murli. Baba says, in Abu there is the temple of the Adhar Kumari and the Kumari. Yes, so there is the temple which is called the Kumari Kanya Mandir, and then there is the temple which is called the Adhar Kumari Ka Mandir. And then Baba says that people go and visit both these temples, and in those temples there are many alcoves like kotri. So in one temple there are many kotris, different places where many such other Kumaris or many such Kumari Kanya statues are placed. Now Baba says, now people in bhakti don't know who these other Kumaris are or who these Kumari Kanyas are. Now Baba says, I explain to you that Brahma Kumaris, so Baba's children, they are of both the kinds. So those who, when they come, they are a Kumari, so unmarried. And then there are others who have been, who have been on the vicious path, and then they have changed their course, and now they have embraced a life of celibacy. So Baba says, both these kinds, they are both Brahma Kumaris. It's not like one is a real Brahma Kumari and another is a fake Brahma Kumari. It's not like that. So Baba says, both Kumaris and other Kumaris are equally worshipped in bhakti, because when Baba comes, both these entities, the ones who have never been on the vicious path in this life and the ones who have retracted and taken the path of purity, both of them are equally Brahma Kumaris. And when they perform the acts that Baba asks you to, then you get the status equally. So Baba says, this is why both of them are worshipped. And Baba says, similarly, when you look at the temples and the deities sitting in the temples, do you understand that these deities, these temples and these figures, they are all representations, they are all memorials of whatever is happening in Sangam Yuga. So Baba says, have you imbibed these points? And when you imbibe a point, you don't say that, you know, this is a temple and Baba says we were a deity. No, it's in your attitude. You feel happy that this is my temple. So when you imbibe something, it becomes part of your smriti. It's part of your consciousness, and it colors your attitude and perception. And it becomes part of your vision, you know. And I will tell you one experience shared by a sister, and she shared that when they were little children, they were 4 years of age, she and her brother, so very, very young, you know, 3, 4, 5 years of age. At that time, their parents came into Gyan. And their first introduction to history was that we were a deity. Okay, so they did not listen, they had not read the history that is taught in school. And they went to school and read history later. But their first introduction to history and geography was that there are the 3 worlds, and then 84 births back you were a deity, and this was their first introduction. So then she was sharing, that sister was sharing, that when we went to school, we found that these people are all very misguided, and they are talking about history in a different way, and they don't know perhaps. And then when they came home and they told their parents, so their parents said that history you study and write in the exam, but this history is the real history that we taught you. So then she said it was very easy. We never had any confusion. We knew that these people are teaching something which is different, and we have to just give an exam in that, and the real history is this. And we always, in our inner world, our perception, our attitude was colored by Baba's history. So we never saw it differently, or there was no. But you see, when we don't come as children, and there is so much of other stuff which has already colored our inner world and our consciousness, and then it is sitting right there at the core, and then we listen to Baba's knowledge, then a lot of purification, a lot of churning has to take place before this truth becomes a part of your attitude and perception. So when Baba says that, have you imbibed knowledge, this is what he means. And the more we have imbibed it, it's sitting in the core of my heart, then you know it's there in your attitude, it's there in your perception. And when you know something is in your attitude and perception, you can look at everything from that angle. And I tell you, when knowledge you have imbibed, you see any scene, you see any behavior, you see any drama, you see any creative work, you can explain it knowledgefully. That's the beauty of imbibing knowledge. Just like, you know, a person with vicious drishti can see viciously everything because that drishti is vicious. Similarly, a soul who has imbibed knowledge can see everything knowledgefully. And when you explain to somebody, you can take very simple examples and explain, because you know, when you have imbibed the knowledge of the cycle, it's so easy. You look around, everything is going cyclic. What is not cyclic? Yes, there is the days cycle, month cycle, the cycle of seasons, the cycle of the years of the month, the cycle, water cycle. Everything is moving in a cyclic pattern. And you can, with that attitude, knowledgeful attitude, you can take examples from everyday life and explain. And it is very, very logical. So Baba says that, have you imbibed the knowledge? Have you imbibed the knowledge of the soul, the supreme soul? Have you imbibed the knowledge of how Baba comes and performs his act of creation, or what is creation, sustenance and destruction according to Baba? What is the method? And have you imbibed the knowledge of the cycle? So Baba says, ask yourself, have you imbibed it? And if you have imbibed it, then you can inspire others to do the same. Okay, so this is something that Baba is talking, and Baba is talking about many points today. There are several points that Baba is talking about imbibing and explaining. And then Baba is talking about refraining from having debate with anybody. So, do you understand that although whatever Baba is telling is universally true, still not everybody will imbibe it the same way or accept it the same way. And you see that Baba today gives the example of other religions or other sects in the Murli. And if there is another sect or another religion, then Baba says, although, you know, the knowledge of the cycle is true, but they will never believe that, you know, you have to be pure, because they have never been in the religion of purity. They have not been a deity. So what makes complete sense to you will not make complete sense to them. And Baba says that in that case, arguing will not lead you to the conclusion that, you know, that they agree that you're right. So you will not reach that place. So I think in these places and in every place, I think when we conduct courses also, every soul is coming from a certain place in their journey. And you give them the whole knowledge, but then you are just inviting them to understand and imbibe as much as they want to. And if they want to be a deity, then you share with them the method of Raj Yoga and how to remember Baba and stuff. And if they are not on the same page with you, it's okay. Yes, and then you don't argue with them that this is right and what you are saying is wrong, because there is something called the truth and there is something called what's right for everyone individually. Okay, so the ultimate truth is what Baba tells us, but individually we will find consonance with it differently, because according to our journey we will not find every point accurate. And so let's understand this well. So let's say there is a soul, and that soul came from the copper age, okay, and in a religion where there was impurity and there was no mandate of celibacy. Or do you know that there are many religions that preach and propagate purity, at least among the like Christianity. So they will say that it's okay if you are a Christian living in a family, then you can go into lust. But if you are a Christian and you are staying in the church, so you are a nun or you are a pastor, then you have to be celibate. Yes, so there is celibacy taught in Christianity. but that celibacy is not for householders. That celibacy is for those staying in the church, right? But there are certain religions in which celibacy is not taught at all. Let's say Islam. So in the Muslim religion, they don't talk about celibacy among those who preach religion also. So even the founder or the people who teach the Quran, they are allowed to remarry and have several wives and everything, right? So in that religion, there is no teaching of purity. So when there is no teaching of purity there, then a soul who has come initially from the soul world into that religion, if you talk about purity, will that make sense to the soul? So that thing won't make sense to the soul. So similarly, Baba says that in Arya Samaj, today Baba is giving an example of Arya Samaj. In Arya Samaj, they are not believers of deities. So they don't believe in idol worship. So they are not even worshipping the idols of deities. So if you tell them, do you want to be a deity? Would they want to be? Because they are not even worshipping those deities. So obviously there is a discord. So the truth is, there was a deity religion, there was Satyug, but these souls were not there. They came later on. So even if this knowledge they listen from somebody, or even in bits and pieces they get to know what the Brahma Kumaris are teaching or preaching, they wouldn't find, that knowledge cannot sit in their buddhi because it's not in their memory. So this is why Baba always tells us that those souls who were in Satyug will get this knowledge accurately, because whatever is in your memory has to emerge for you to find consonance with knowledge. Okay, so this is why Baba says that you will meet many people, many members of society who will not agree with this concept of being pure in a household and embracing absolute purity, and that's okay. But Baba says, one thing which is true for every soul is the knowledge of the soul and the knowledge of the Supreme Soul. So whether that's a person, that's a soul from the Muslim religion or an Arya Samaji or whoever, these two things, one is I am a soul, and the second is I am the child of the Supreme Soul who is a point of light, and that we come from the soul world. These points are universal for everybody. Later on, in the cycle, yes, purity, absolute purity, divine virtues, these things maybe people don't understand. But then these 3 points, that you are a soul, you are the child of the Supreme Soul, and we all come from the soul world. These 3 points are universal truths which apply to every soul. And in every soul's memory, there is this truth hidden somewhere. So Baba says, don't go into debate with them about the other stuff. And for that, you can use one small yukti. What you can say is, everybody has the freedom to preach what they believe. Okay, so if somebody is talking about, you are wrong, and even if you are not debating, somebody says you are wrong and whatever you are doing is not right, then you say, okay, we live in a free country and we are free to preach and practice whatever makes sense to us, and why do you have to interfere in that? And I will give you an example of this. There was this one brother, and he had come to the center and he told me, you have been misled and you are on a wrong path, and all these BKs are teaching you stuff which is not true and this and that. And I told him, you really think that I, who have been on this path for 12, 13, 14, however many years, in this 15 minutes of time of your discouragement, I will leave the path and come with you and do whatever you say. Do you really think like that? So even if I have been led astray, you are not the person I'm going to listen to and fall in the right place. So you are wasting your time here. So I told him, there are only two things we can do. Either you agree to what we are teaching or you leave. There is no third thing we can do here. So if what we are teaching doesn't make sense to you, it's okay, I understand. But it's not like you have come to teach me and I will understand whatever you're teaching. So then he started laughing and he said, so I said, you see, I'm talking very practically. I'm not saying that, maybe 10 years down the line, I realized that, whatever I thought was not okay or this or that. But this discussion is not going to do that. So then he left. So you see that there are very amicable ways in which you can send the message that we agree to disagree. Okay, so we just have to agree to disagree, and Baba says you don't have to debate there, you don't have to prove there. And remember this is a very important piece of teaching, because I think that many a times BKs enter into arguments and you try to prove something which is not necessary. It's okay if somebody doesn't, but anyways give them the knowledge of the soul, the knowledge of the Supreme Soul and the knowledge of the soul world, and teach them how to detach from the body and remember Baba. And teach them the practice of detachment. Teach them how detachment will give them perspective. And if you teach them this, even if they imbibe it in various degrees, it's okay. But that's your job. You have to give them the knowledge of the soul, Supreme Soul and the soul world. Even if they don't agree to the other stuff about purity and divine virtues. So this is something that Baba is underlining today. And then Baba today says that, just like physical personalities, so you see somebody with a big car and you see somebody very gaudily dressed and somebody carrying themselves off physically in a very attractive manner, then you also become body conscious, don't you? So if somebody has great physical personality, that great in appearance, and these days we have all heard stories about people who are very who are called influencers on Instagram, and they are carrying themselves off very beautifully and attractively, and then when you get a sneak peek into their real lives, so that is a disaster. So they live in a very messed up manner, but apparently they are all, they present themselves in such an attractive manner. And Baba says that when you look at somebody who is having a physical personality, whether it is dress or living or lifestyle or the way they put on makeup or the way they walk or talk, then what happens is you also become very body conscious. So a physical personality has the strength to pull you into body consciousness. And Baba says, what you don't know is that if there is a spiritual personality, which is if the soul, what is the main ingredient of spiritual personality? Purity. So Baba says, if there is purity inside, if there is complete purity in the soul, then that purity has the capacity to pull somebody into soul consciousness also. And I remember that there was this sister who had shared something about Prakashmani Dadiji. And she said that when I met Prakashmani Dadiji, I don't know what happened, but I felt like I want to be like her. And she was born and brought up in a different religion, different country. She was born and brought up in a different language. So she said, I was what we call Westerner, but I don't know what happened, but when I came to Dadi, I felt like I have to be like her. And there was this great pull that was there in the personality. And that's the personality of purity. And Baba says that if you have that, then it becomes very easy, just like, body conscious people are, and in economics, we call it the demonstration effect. So in economics, there is this term called the demonstration effect. And have you seen that, your neighbor buys a fancy car, even if you can't afford it, you take a car on loan and buy it. Because that has made you very body conscious, and it makes you feel that there is an urgency to buy a car, even if your office is just 10 minutes of walking distance. So that is the kind of effect that other people's physical personalities have on us. So think about the power of spiritual personality. But do you know why we are all experienced in the power of physical personality, but not in the experience of spiritual personality? Because not many souls have that personality of purity. And the world needs to see more and more examples of the purity of the personality of purity, so that this personality of purity becomes famous and more people adopt it. And when all BKs, we Brahmin souls, we carry this personality of purity, then we will attract so many souls into spiritual lifestyle and becoming pure. And don't you think that when you are dressed in white and there is a clean heart and a soul conscious attitude and the feelings and vibrations of good wishes and good feelings, then don't you think you create an environment where people are attracted to be like that? So people are attracted to be like that. And Baba says this is the kind of personality that we need to create and carry around. And a personality is a very, very powerful instrument that pulls others in a certain direction. And Baba says, take care to have that personality of purity which pulls people towards a spiritual lifestyle. Okay, Om Shanti.